So do you think that often people that lose their minds in terms of psychosis or other mental health issues, that they struggle with personality itself, like falling in and out of personality?
I think they definitely struggle with personality, yeah. But I think they're also struggling with more than that too. I mean, mental health issues is another area as well on top. Do you know what I mean? There's normally mad. I mean, from the point of view of this, life beyond personality, to live identified as personality looks like a kind of madness. Now, if you look at an extreme example, it's easier to see this. So, you know, you might look at, I'm trying to think of an example other than Trump, because he's such an obvious example. I think, okay, let's look at Trump. You know, here's everyone, most people, most sane people can see that this is a very extreme kind of personality, which is pumped up with self-belief and needs to prove itself and needs to be the biggest guy in the room and the most rich guy in the room. And now, from the point of view of this, all that looks very silly and very childish. And in fact, it does probably to many people. That's a kind of madness. That's not a natural state. That's something that's learned, that was inculcated in him through his childhood, his father, everything that grew up around him. And he obviously never questioned it, and therefore it got stronger and stronger. Now, I think his brother actually, who died, he actually became an alcoholic, sort of did question it. And hence, you know, he had problems because he was in an environment in which it was only right that men should be like this and that you don't question it. So sometimes in the family and in the group personality, it's the ones who question it, they have a really hard time because there's a pressure on them to conform to the consensus. This is how men are. You know, Trump was told, write about this in the book, there was a kind of mantra from his dad, which is, we are killers and kings. So if you don't conform to that, you're kind of you're seen as a lesser person, a lesser man. You're not a real man, which is a weird upside down world, but that's what, you know. So you either conform to that and that becomes part of your life, or you start to question it. Now, I'm just using Trump as an example because everybody has their own version from their childhood and their conditioning and everything of what they're conditioned and expected to be. The rules and the beliefs are, you know, what they lead you to be, what you're meant to be like, to be a good person so if you're religious, it might be about being good and kind. If you're Trump family, you've got that. Every family has got its own structure. So part of finding this is looking at one's own family structure, one's own psychology and history, the story of you. This is why I call it the story of you, because by understanding the story of you, one can see beyond that story to what you are before the story.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting aspect that personality is presented as the complete normal status quo, like in the example you mentioned of Donald Trump, but also for example, for me, it was completely natural even to consider yourself as a personality. And then certain aspects of, I remember that as a child, like I was careful that I was not speaking to myself because I knew it would be regarded insane if I was walking on the street talking to myself. And also when like frequently I came across the joke that people said, yeah, you're a multiple personality, and other people laugh about saying, oh, I'm a multiple personality. Like there's a group dynamic that totally requires for you to be a unified personality, but in itself, it is very unseen that this personality itself is, even if it's unified, a split of reality. So the first step in, for example, approaching Trump now, I would say, is to actually split again, so that you can start to see that the personality is itself a split that has split itself off, and then you look at that, and you're saying you shouldn't make it the bogeyman, like not the bad guy, but at the same time, that's kind of the beginning of change also. So my question is, how is that different from pure acceptance? So you're not saying just look at everything that personality doesn't accept it, but at the same time you are advocating a concept that's called non-doing. So I think it's an interesting differentiation to understand how acceptance is different from non-doing. Is that enough, or should I elaborate more?
No, that's fine. Okay, I would put it like this. There is a natural change that happens. That's why I would call it non-doing, when the false is seen through. So the reason that there's this dodgy area about acceptance, like, yes, everything is accepted, but that doesn't mean it can't change. So this is why I said, yeah, the personality is not wrong. But you could say it's not wrong, but it's not free, right? So the yearning starts to push you in the direction of what is free, not what is necessarily the most comfortable or the most, this is my safe zone, so I'm staying with this. When the personality is seen, naturally things that one was identifying with something keeps it running. And when that identification is seen through, when the patterns are seen through, they do naturally fall away. But they fall away, it's not self-help, it's just a natural process. Self-help basically works on is basically a personality trying to improve the personality. This is about seeing beyond the personality. And it comes from a yearning and a knowledge inside somewhere that there is something beyond it. So the energy that goes into this is not doing. The energy that goes into self-development is a kind of doing, because it's driven by the personality itself, which says, if I go to the gym 5 nights a week, I'm going to feel stronger, and I'm going to be healthier, and I'm going to be a better person, I'm going to be more attractive. There's a kind of a stress involved in that. Now, there's also a drive that goes into the yearning, you could say, but it's a drive to sort of return to the alpha, to the beginning point that is already in us. Yearning is the best word I've got for it. But the moving in that direction comes from a very different place, and it's deep, and it doesn't have that same stress in it. So therefore, I would call it non-doing. But out of that, change happens that is the deepest change you could ever have in your life. The self-help changes are on the very top surface. These changes are like on a soul level, because they're to do with the absolute level. They're to do with who you are, who you aren't, what is false and what is real.